Joe.
Hey, Kavya, how are you?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good. Ready for this week to end.
Yeah. Did Marco reach out to you about the grant?
I don't think I have heard from Marco. Let me check.
Okay. I offered him the option for budgeting and all, but you know that journalism grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a great job on this. Maybe I can just sort of share with you, uh, what he did whenever you have time. But I guess he's good to submit for now. But check this out pertaining to the dark patterns. Rohit has been tweeting about it today. So apparently that's like fresh on his mind and
Mhm.
FTC. And there is like, he used the same exact video, what is a dark pattern?
Yeah.
And
Sure.
bunch more guidance that he's hinting at. Statement of Commissioner Rohit Chopra regarding dark patterns. There's a whole statement right here that seems quite relevant to what we are about to discuss.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Hello, everyone.
Hey,
Hey, Noble, how are you?
I am well. I'm doing all right. Got my second dose in the books.
yay! Great.
Gotten,
I got my first one on Monday.
oh, good for you.
Nice.
I got to tell you, that second dose, that next day, I felt like I was hit by 7 buses, but by 4 people.
Which
Sounds
one
about
did you
right.
get?
I'm team Pfizer.
Oh, okay.
I'm house Pfizer.
House Pfizer. Nice.
but as it were, by 4 p.m. that next day, I was up and running. I was back in the saddle, as it were.
Oh, that's not bad. So, Noble, I was just sharing Rohit from FTC's tweets just from this morning, just a few hours ago. And
Okay.
so the last PDF is this statement, and he was tweeting out about the dark patterns, the same video that we were looking at. He's tweeted the same video, and then just a couple of follow-up tweets. And the statement seems quite relevant, and the fact that it's already a primary concern for FTC being the only one who can actually take any action. This is quite encouraging and informative of our work. Will definitely be very, very relevant.
It's interesting, Joel, because I took the deal, I took the dive into Brignall's work at Stanford per your recommendation, and I did find well, not Brignall, sorry.
Fogg, BJ, Dr. Fogg.
BJ, yeah. And so I have in our document, I started sort of structuring it, and I tend to, but I wanted to sort of, well, at least with the Brignall thing, I wanted to sort of come to a conclusion. He made a very good suggestion, or at least a thoughtful suggestion, to either use a different phrase or term. If it was indeed copyrighted. I don't think it is, because Brignall, Harry encourages everyone to just, preach the dark patterns. There's no like copyright or, use terms. I do imagine that we either use with attribution or find another term that is useful for XR. And so I started throwing out some ideas there. But yeah, dark patterns is something that he birthed and has been advocating for. And I'm glad that it's, you've got Rohit talking about it today. That's awesome. ABC Mouse. Oh my goodness. I got bamboozled by the ABC Mouse as well with dark patterns with my little 3-year-old. So yeah. All right. I can share what I attempted to do. I guess this is us on the call for today, which is fine. Oh, I can't share.
Oh, one second.
Kavya, if you want to share the
You
dark
should be able
patterns
to share. No, now.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm also rude. I'm chewing.
No worries. It's all, this is just supposed to be informal anyway.
Eating a late dinner. That's very insensitive. Sorry about that. So yeah, what I attempted to do was sort of codify my note, like just codify what we talked about last week. Just basically brought my notes down to paper. You had suggested the accessibility groups format. I don't have access to that, nor did I request access to that. But I wanted to just check to see if it was okay for me to request access to that first, so we could just follow that model.
Right. The accessibility folks, what they did there.
Yeah, you had suggested that was a good model to follow.
Yeah, let me add you right away.
And so the second thing was that, I just wanted to sort of close the loop on, Joel, your recommendation around the terms or the phrase dark patterns. Should we find another term? Should we use it with attribution, or should we just reach out and ask for permission to use? I provided some alternatives based on the staff. I nerded out really a lot on that Stanford document earlier last week. So.
Oh, was the question whether we should find a different term instead of dark patterns?
I thought that's what I heard, Joel, you mentioned. Can you?
Yeah, it was more around, it was see if there was maybe another term, and only because, if we're venturing, like, do we think that the dark patterns as it's defined, for like websites and marketing, that kind of stuff, does it apply to XR, right? And if it doesn't, then we, instead of trying to sort of stuff it in and make it fit, potentially find another word, right? Or another, like, define it as something else. But if we think it's going to fit, then, if there's name recognition, there's value there, right? So I think it's really going to depend on that.
I think it fits, especially, this statement from Rohit, I find it encouraging. We just need to, add the flavors of XR and examples, and it will become ubiquitous over time.
Yeah, I'm good either way. I just wanted to kind of throw that out.
All right. But there were there are other ways. But what I did, just wanted to just spark conversation today, was, yes, I basically took the definitions from, I think Alina was kind enough to provide this definition. And this other definition that she had provided, or someone provided, was from darkpatterns.org, from the same gentleman, Harry, as well. And I see what you're saying, where it's more apps and websites, but I think it does fit. I'm with Kavya, where this is digital software at the end of the day, and whether it's extended reality applications or not, it may fit with sort of digital twin applications, because you're immersed in something that is a digital piece of software at the very abstract level. But what I try to do, to your point, Joel, was throw out, and this is just all this is just for conversation, but throw out a definition in context of XR, where I'm saying that building in, and this is just super rough, so if it's not even grammatically right, probably, but building in functionality for immersive experiences based on human psychology that serves business interest while neglecting users' intent, feeling, choice, and control. And you can see where I'm pulling from 1.0 a little bit for that. It could just make it, we can make this context a little bit more XR specific, but I just wanted to leave it floating just to see what you guys thought. And if we ever considered a different definition, we could go with it, or if we wanted to stick with what's familiar in dark patterns, which seems to be like taking off, but we could just sort of ride those coattails, but just define it in the context of XR. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I'm with the latter approach.
Yeah. And so we probably may need to finesse, absolutely need to finesse this definition, but
Yes.
make it a little bit more in line with what we've written before, or how we want to define it. We just basically chart the course with the way we want to sort of define it. And I just wanted to put something notional together.
Yeah, yeah, alignment to XR. What would that mean? What could that be? Should we think about it now, or
Yeah, no. This is just, if there are initial thoughts, we just highlight it and we can just come back to it. It doesn't have to be today. This could just be something that we could just mull over and just sort of just see how we can either stick to the pure definition of it or have our own definition of it in context with what we're trying to do, or a combination of both. Regardless is fine. And now, yeah.
So, I mean, do you want to put, because, I mean, if you want to put notes, I mean, maybe I can put them in, or if you want, talk about them, because I think from my perspective, there's two things I wanted to bring up. One is I highlighted business because I don't think it's limited to just business interests, right? There's some pretty, I mean, there's some nefarious things that can be done that governments could be using to take advantage of people, right? Like, and being able to sort of further false narratives, those kinds of things. So I don't think it's necessarily limited to just business. And then I would also say that, I think it's beyond building in functionality, or it's more involved than just building in functionality, because you could be taking advantage of existing, either, I mean, so, and this is where I get to the potential for a different definition, because in apps, right, like if you kind of go back to, like, leading a user down a path using visual references and using psychology, to me, is a little bit different than using, like guiding people through, or making it hard to click the cancel button, right? Like, for example, like, to me, they're kind of the same, but they are on a different plane, because one, you're dealing with the human psychology. The other one, you're just dealing with what I'll call poor UI choices, right? Like, and just making it hard to make that change or click that button, or something along those lines. So to me, it's way more involved than just making it hard to cancel a subscription or doing that. I mean, you can potentially alter people's behavior by manipulating the virtual environment, right? Like, either graphically or, well, mostly graphically, right? Like, that, I think it's a very real potential to be able to do that.
Graphically, and you could give them limited time. I mean, you could put a little timer on stuff, like limited time, and when people have limited time, they're going to choose the first easiest option. So there are many ways to, like, walk them to a different path. And so perhaps we should look into, instead of or in conjunction with serve business interest, but like intent, like manipulating in, like,
So Kavya, and actually both you guys, I want to challenge you to come up another level, right? So when my thesis was all about being able to I mean, manipulate the virtual environment, right? So imagine Second Life and consider it almost like a man in the middle attack, right? So if I can create a avatar that, like, if I can manipulate my avatar and have it look different to both you and Noble based on your likes and dislikes, that's what I mean by manipulating the visual, right? Like the actual, like, in that part of the environment. And that comes with some very direct psychological effects, right? Like that you can influence people's behavior by building trust, because I can build an avatar that's so trustworthy to you. But because it's code, I can build an avatar that's trustworthy to you, and I can build an avatar that's trustworthy to Noble, and have them in the same scene, and neither one of you be any the wiser that the other one is seeing something different, right? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Right. So this, to me, this is where my head is, right? Like I'm way down that road. And so when I talk about being able to manipulate the physical or the virtual environment there, I mean, I'm talking about, changing the scene, changing the way it looks, adding different things that you find influential so that I can continue to push you down a path that you may not have intended to take. And without you sort of knowing it off the, like right off the bat. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it makes perfect sense. Especially it makes sense when you're talking about radicalization.
Well, really anything, but yes,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, like if the whole premise of the whole part, like the whole use case for my thesis was using it to collect intelligence, right? And or being able to influence people's behavior, right? Like to say, okay, hey, there's this bad person across the world, right? Well, if I can break into their video game, or I can break into Second Life, or I can break into, alt space, or whatever we're using these days, and be able to subtly change the environment or to add cues to them to be able to do things, that's where, to me, that's a huge danger. So that's where, to me, again, I go, okay, I understand the apps, and we're talking about different design behaviors with buttons, and and I gotta tell you, like, I'll just, my dirty little secret is I play Words with Friends, right? Like I've been playing the same guy for like 10 years. But they have this annoying, their ads are so annoying, where there's a timer before you can, like, kill the ad. And then it's a tiny little X in the top, like,
Yeah,
corner, and
they switch the location of
yep,
the
and they
X.
switch the location. Like, yeah. So I get that, right? But now I'm talking, like, to me, that's benign. That's an annoyance. That's like, okay. I mean, yes, I can do it. I'll hit back when I accidentally click it and the damn app store opens, like that. So, and it's annoyance, and I get annoyed. But when I think of this, I think of actually, like, no kidding, changing people's behaviors and thoughts.
Yeah.
So this might actually help. So we essentially need to break, where I'm thinking this is going is this is such a broad topic. And so how we can probably treat this as an executive overview, or at least our definition, after we, this is just a suggestion, after we sort of flesh out examples that make sense to talk about, and that may drive both points that we've talked about so far. One, the definition that makes more sense. Again, this was just notional, just to
right.
spark this conversation.
Do you think the word weaponization could be used here?
In some context, absolutely,
yeah. And it would let me sort of share what was just ruminating in my brain, and then maybe, so the word weaponization, coercion, you'll notice I'm not sticking, and because we haven't defined this yet, and why I wanted to have this conversation yet, you'll notice, I just want to forewarn, I'm using different terms, different phrases to say the same thing on purpose, just to see what sticks, but I'm not married to anything. Okay. Right. So this is exactly what I'm trying to do. For the three different arenas, and there could be more, just let me know. I'm only, in my mind, it's in world, where that could either be, recontextualized as environmental or spatial. It is in app. Say, for example, I'm in the poker VR. I have side quest on my Oculus so that I don't have to log into, Facebook, because I don't have an account. And I use a poker app on there, and I'm being forced to buy chips, and I just want to use the free chips. And this is not the in-world experience. This is just in the lobby per se. I'm in VR, but I'm not, just communicating with other places. And so that could also sort of fit with in-world, because I'm kind of there. In-app, meaning, which is actually where I was talking about, is like, hey, just push notifications, and that I'm just totally, let me just sort of stick to the script here. Sorry. All right. So spatial, we want to make an assertion of what the risk is, any dark patterns or coercion. I'm using both words interchangeably. An example that I chose for in-world spatial was the flock thing that we're talking about. I just want to qualify that I'm actually very conflicted with flock, because I actually looked through the GitHub. I actually read through it. I get what they're trying to do. And it does, in my opinion, help with privacy, but long story, diversion. Anyway, so persistent cookies, those ads that you were talking about, Joel, how they get remarketed towards you, and all that stuff. What do those look like with just cookies, or with whatever might come next? That as an example of in-world, as I'm sort of walking around in a digital twin environment or something like that. Dark. This is from your Stanford piece that just took me down a rabbit hole. So you'll see that come up a lot. Persuasive design, which is almost to the point that you were making before. For in-world, an example would be nudging me through visual interfaces. That is, like you said, is just an annoyance. But again, goes to that, yes, we don't like it, but just basically trying to coerce me to take an action that is in the interest of the organization, not just business. And then I try to go through, these are explanations. Content that is not generated by a user, that could be deceptive. So imagine I use the example of, I just thought of this, like a taboola. Are you guys familiar with taboola?
Mm-hmm.
Those clickbaity things at the bottom of the media articles. Just imagine that for XR, where something seems to be relevant to you in the distance, and you think it's an artifact that you need to collect in the game, but it's actually not. It's actually just an ad that you don't want to select or something. I don't have a tangible example of that, but this is just more, just ideation. This is the Zuckerberg effect, as Harry calls it, but I call it privacy setting coercion, basically tricking me into sharing more information. So you can imagine that in a sort of, we talk about this in 1.0, where it's a location-based application where I may graffiti something virtually, and it may have my profile to it, and I may just want a fake picture of me, but it may, trick me into sharing more that I need for that longitude and latitude, what have you. I've not seen, I should qualify that I have not seen that happen, to Joel, your point last week, before, but it's easy for that to happen. And then of course we get into the impact. So you notice the format here that I'm proposing. This is also because I haven't seen the accessibility one you just shared with me. But for every category, I'm going into just what our assertion about the risk is, give examples, an explanation, and it can be any examples. Let's just throw ideas on the wall, talk about the risk, share an example, explain your example, And then if you can, any impact, significance, or adverse effect that helps us towards the ultimate goal and considerations that Kavya, you put together here. As a start, once we have enough of these ideas, if this is a good proposal, then we can start structuring it into a cohesive narrative. But right now, I thought last week where we left off, it was hard for me to start piecing how this could come together. So I just wanted to sort of put some skeleton together. I don't know, I'll just be quiet so that you guys can sort of give me some feedback.
I am wondering, and this is something that I just I'm copying over from Rohit's statement. There is something that he wrote here. From making ads look like organic search results to creating maze of privacy settings to complex to their own engineers can't even code, these companies know the dark patterns can drive profit in a culture. I
This
don't
is
know.
in the Excel. I mean, sorry, the
It's in the
PDF.
PDF, yeah.
Yep, let me open that again. Whoops. Got it.
So, oh yeah, then they're also talking about digital deception should not be a viable American business model. Yeah, this seems to be sort of rich of little nuggets here and there. Maybe reading it would provoke some more
Yep,
thoughts in there.
got it, got it, got it.
Just like, oh yeah, so each one aimed at a nefarious outcome, just like Joel was saying, that almost certainly could not be achieved without deception. Seems
Got it.
quite interesting.
Got it. Hey, Joe, feel free to strike out, if this isn't, yeah, I love this. Okay, so yeah, if you don't like something, again, this was just thrown together without much thought. So just strike things out that you feel don't work. Kavya the same. That way we know what we're keeping and what
Yeah,
we're
exactly. If you, Joel, because from your eyes, from those sort of a deeper granular look, if you could kind of clean this up, or we'll sort of keep depositing relevant contents, and you can kind of trim that and align it if that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this one's difficult. I mean, I mean, which is why we're here, right? I mean, if it were easy, but it's interesting because I struggle with like, what's the actual definition, right?
There is, yeah, there won't ever be one.
Yeah.
I mean, you can sort of say, for example, when I started looking into dark patterns, I stumbled upon the BJ guy's work, which then first approaches it by defining persuasive design. And I can share, I thought I did already, but I can share what I found, down that rabbit hole. There it is. So persuasive design, and maybe this is useful. This is not the Stanford paper at all, but this talks about, before they get into the 7 design techniques, before they get into dark patterns, they first have to define persuasive design. And they lead into this by saying it's very, even for their context, it's very difficult to just give it one definition. I'm dealing with, by the way, just as an aside, I'm working on an AI project where we're working with bias in AI, and I'm sort of tasked with sort of defining that. There is no one definition of bias in AI. There's no one definition of fairness. And I think we're running into the same thing. And so I think that's an opportunity for us, right? So in this case, they're saying, well, in order to define dark patterns in the way that we want to define it, let's talk about persuasion. And they go in through the different kinds of persuasion. I think it kind of takes away, it kind of takes a bit from Harry's work. But it sort of structures it differently. And so this may be interesting to share. as well. I don't know why I didn't share this before, so I'm gonna slap it. Keep going, sorry. I'm gonna slap it here. Probably time to start giving these some names. Persuasion. I don't know how to spell, do I?
BJ kills me. I went back on his website. The ethical use of persuasive technology.
I really loved the video that he shared with the
Mhm.
monkeys. I thought that was pretty cute.
Yeah, and I wonder if he's using the same Harry Bringioli, that citation, because that's referred to in the PDF as well.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Okay.
Is
the first reference to the citation.
when was that? Like,
This is today.
This is
No,
today.
this statement is from September 2, 2020.
from BJ?
From Rohit Chopra.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is
So
from
he
last
tweeted about
year.
it again today,
Yeah,
referring to that statement.
So I'm actually very curious why and whether they're doing something about this.
Looks like he's picking up a fight or something.
Yeah, something is happening.
It says the FTC has many tools to combat. No, the first one is like dark patterns, blah, blah, blah. For years, FTC has allowed these patterns to foster online, but he's saying we need to do better. And the FTC aspires to be a credible watchdog in digital market, hashtag dark pattern FTC. So he's like rolling
From
out
his
that
official, was this from his official FTC or his personal?
That's the FTC Commissioner Chopra's official account.
Okay. Okay, so he starts by quoting Harry.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least sharing Harry's video.
Yep. And then he's going with dark patterns FTC hashtag. So.
Okay. That's an opportunity to hop on that, by the way. If we were making some progress, I would just hijack that hashtag really quickly. We'll get there. Okay, sorry. This is interesting.
Right. So yeah, I had to like point out as soon as I saw this development, perhaps the whole thing. Oh yeah, 7 hours ago there was this transatlantic consumer dialogue where dark patterns are impacting consumer data protection and privacy, but we can still do better. And seems like a whole bunch of people met and talked. Um, it looks like a panel that FTC was involved too. Now on to the first panel discussion. What are dark patterns? Join the discussion here 10 hours ago. Hold on 1 second. This is the FTC workshop. I'm going to drop the link here in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
The very first workshop by FTC on dark patterns, quite encouraging. That means this is certainly FTC workshop dark patterns video showcase, March 29th. It's kind of funny that we are like literally on the same page as FTC.
Yeah, interesting.
They ran that today.
Yeah, and there is a video. Oh, there's a 51-minute video. No,
That was from this morning.
Yeah, this is from this morning, 5 hours 51. So there's a whole spiel that happened that led to these tweets, obviously.
Let's see. Yeah, because the ABC Mouse situation, which is referenced in that PDF, was definitely last year, because I remember getting hoodwinked, or at least my kid got hoodwinked because she was on the tablet and she ended up signing up for something that she didn't intend to. It's kind of shameful, but all right.
Media advisory.
I'm gonna just slap this in here as well into the document, just so I can remember to nerd out on it later.
Yep.
All right. So how are we feeling? Like, how are we feeling? Just honest feedback with the structure once we're clear of definitions. Thank you. Looks pretty fleshed out. I don't remember what format you had recommended with accessibility, but
Well,
at
here
least
is another one. So the thing that we are circling around, if you look at the latest one, a request for comments for the exact same thing.
Hold on. This is different from what you shared before. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, this is different, but they're like the Federal Revenue Seeking Commission, range of topics and fair that will be discussed on this workshop. So apparently whatever was there was discussed today. We kind of missed the boat.
We missed this one. Oh, 29th. Yeah. Oh, man. I would have joined.
Yeah.
If it was open to the public.
Yeah, but at least there is a video, so we could kind of review this whole event, because this definitely seems very novel and could really be informative as to what all comments were considered, brought to light, and if they ever even discussed the notion of convergence of AI and other technologies or not.
Oh, it just begs for me to just take a peek at this. So that was just today, and they move on to something completely different.
You know what I like in here, this outline of things that they were looking for, and I'm just going to copy it over right below this. The definition, the prevalence of dark patterns, and then the use of AI and machine learning to deliver dark patterns. That's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
The effectiveness of dark patterns. So one other thing to sort of think about when we were defining the artificial intelligence definition, we expanded it to include, so AI is the study of domain of problem solving, pattern recognition, but then expanded it to developing systems endowed with intellectual characteristic of humans, such as ability to reason, discover meaning, generalize, learn from past experiences. So if that is the definition of AI as a domain, that it can really, build system that kind of mimic humans' reasoning and stuff, or understand that reasoning or drive that reasoning, that means that automatically AI is a attack vector or a threat vector that can be weaponized to introduce these dark patterns. So the fact that they are adding artificial intelligence as like one of the core things that they want to talk about with respect to dark patterns is quite interesting and encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, anything that is like, I think, Joel, your example before, if you were able to start mapping, like what you described as an algorithmic solution to sort of just creating an avatar that appeals to me, that is an AI problem. That's a problem that an AI could just solve at scale.
Or create at scale.
Yeah, create at scale. And so that's absolutely relevant as well.
Yeah, man, it really is too bad we missed this thing. I'm wondering if they would take comments late.
Comments were only invited for today's event.
Yeah, this is my former boss, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, you used to work for Mark?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I worked for him for his gubernatorial campaign, not to age myself, a long time ago, and then in Richmond for his in the governor's office.
Okay. He's a hard man to get to do anything, but
Is he really?
Oh yeah, we like the nonprofit we work for. We try to get either Warner or Dan. I can't remember the other guy now. The other senator.
Okay, no worries. I guess Joel, help me out, or Kavya, you even like so. Next steps, like action something out for me. Help someone help me.
So,
What are the next steps with
so, so
this
as a
format?
next step, I was thinking, what if we could combine all this? So Joe, what if you combine all this to synthesize a appropriate definition that takes your perspective into account? Because now we've got all of this, material, the raw material. And so if you could, help us lead to a more aligned definition, which is, takes in account this dark pattern. So that could be one thing, like defining taxonomy. So dark patterns in XR, what is that? Or if you want to call it something else, then what is that? We could start with that and then go down the rabbit hole of like risk and impact, specifically in terms of think about geolocation wise too. If you embed something that is just indicative that go this way or that way, you could be controlling traffic, you could be controlling traffic to different shops, you could be, one could place some scary avatar at the corner, so you just don't turn there, you turn in the other section, and you've just literally just weaponized and deterred people from entering a particular shop or something.
Yeah, I actually, so I know I referenced the gentleman from last week who had brought up the Nyan catting F-16s, right? So I was toying around with different ideas to the point that you just made, Kavya. One idea was to segment our approach with industries, on which I think may not land the way I think it will land. I don't like that idea. Or break it out by IRL and app in world. Is that, and then sort of just diving in, like I sort of suggested, is that I just want.
I like that thinking. So Joel, listen to me. If I'm wrong or right, and both of you actually, what if, just like you're saying, Noble, what if we could maybe divide the risk or the impact? Because the only way we are going to be able to create one awareness and then drive a regulation is by dissecting it in such a way that it's categorical. So perhaps the risks of categories could be, or the risk of impact could be divided. What is the real world impact? So one could go nuts, crazy, or whatever. What is the real world impact? Real world could include psychological impact on one's health,
Right, right.
whatever. And what is the inward impact? So the inward impact could be because of the inward behavior, you have made purchases or whatever, and you've now gotten way more addicted, stuff like that. So maybe like categorizing risks in like three different categories, three or four. Just like you're saying how you're saying inward, IRL, and then in
Yep.
marketplace. So that
Right,
we
right,
can
right.
go down that categorical.
Got it. But I just wanted to clarify, you want impacts to be a different section?
No. Either or. We can make a selection. Could be a risk or could be an impact, but we could go down this thing just like you have defined it in a category.
Got
So
it. Okay.
so basically we've identified three specific categories when it comes to XR and dark patterns. And these are the three different categories,
Right,
or
right,
four different categories or whatever.
right.
And then we just basically address them one by one, based on what is the ultimate impact. Is it inward operations that are influenced, inward behavior that is influenced, that now all these other avatars are kind of not okay or whatever, versus like real world impact where somebody is actually losing their mind or losing money, that kind of stuff, or a marketplace impact, which is it's good for the company, but it's really bad for the user because it drives sales, it drives subscriptions, but what is it doing to the person?
You had said something, and I'm taking notes from something you said earlier that keeps ringing in my head, so I just wanted to write it down. I'm sorry, Kavya. You'd given an example.
That dupes the person to make some changes or alters experience that alters.
I can't remember what you said, but it basically I think what you're trying to say, it sort of, the alters is the wrong word. You used a different word that basically, like in world, I'm looking at one thing. What was that example that you gave earlier? It was so good. Now I forgot it. Never mind. Never mind the thought. Sorry. Kavya, feel free to throw in comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
With what you just said, because I was just stuck on something you said earlier, an example that you gave earlier that I've actually seen before, and so but I can't piece it together right now. It's been a long day.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like, we can just like table this and just sort of, Joel, are you okay to take on definition? I would totally work on the categories, and Noble, you and I can work on the categories and the risks.
Right.
And yeah.
It's funny because I'm just realizing that I'd come to the same conclusion as to how this meeting was going to go. It's like, who would like to own which sections in world? So I'm glad we came to that as well. We spent a lot of time sort of documenting and nixing ideas. So I think that's a check. And then this is still an open item, but I don't think it matters right now. And so thank you so much. I'm sorry to rush off, but I have to go check on my little girl.
Yeah, I'll send this recording over.
All right.
Joel, are we good?
Yep. Yeah, no problem. I'll take a stab at it.
Okay. Sounds good.
And Joel, just piggybacking off of your earlier point, if you ever need to reach out to Warner and or Kane, I can't make any promises, as I'm supposed to say, but I can probably put you in touch with someone. Where it goes, I don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I always describe it to people working for Warner specifically, and Kane by default, because a lot of cross-pollination among the staff members is like working for the mafia. I got maybe 5 years ago,